Recurring mistakes and the psychology of change. Hello, everyone. Today, I want to delve deeply into one of the most fascinating puzzles of human psychology. The question is, why do humans repeat mistakes and struggle to change? This question may seem simple, but it conceals complex mechanisms of human nature. We all find ourselves repeating mistakes despite knowing we need to change. Whether it's finding yourself in front of the refrigerator at midnight after resolving to diet, exploding with anger after promising to stay calm, or making impulse purchases after vowing not to waste money. These patterns aren't just about lack of willpower, but reflect deeper psychological processes. Chapter 1. The Brain's Preservation, Tendencies and Resistance to Change. The human brain is an amazing organ, but it's also very conservative. From an evolutionary perspective, the brain prioritizes survival and maximizes energy efficiency. Therefore, the brain prefers to operate along familiar neural pathways. Thinking or behaving in new ways demands additional energy from the brain, which it instinctively resists. This is how habits form. Actions that initially required conscious effort become automated and unconscious through repetition. It's like how you once needed to concentrate on every movement when learning to drive, but now can drive without thinking. Interestingly, this system doesn't distinguish between good and bad habits. To the brain, there's only familiar and new. Therefore, even negative patterns once formed are considered safe defaults by the brain. This is why many people feel strong discomfort when attempting change. The brain interprets this discomfort as a danger signal and powerfully guides us back to familiar patterns. From this perspective, failing to change isn't about lack of willpower, but the powerful effect of the brain's biological preservation mechanisms. Cynically speaking, our brain is like a very lazy bureaucrat, more interested in preservation than innovation. It constantly whispers, "Why risk trying something new? Aren't you surviving well enough in your current state?" This whispering is very irritating in retrospect, but from the brain's perspective, it's just faithfully performing its duty. Chapter 2. The Entanglement of Emotions and Wounds. Humans are both logical beings and deeply emotional creatures. In many cases, our recurring mistakes don't stem from lack of information or knowledge, but from unresolved emotional issues. For example, someone who overeats despite knowing it's unhealthy is likely seeking emotional stability through food. People who repeat addictive behaviors mostly know they're harmful, but also know these behaviors temporarily reduce their inner pain. These patterns are often connected to childhood experiences. Coping mechanisms formed in childhood may have been essential survival strategies then, but can become obstacles in adulthood. For instance, a child raised in an emotionally unstable home environment might learn to be hypersensitive to others' emotional changes, which could lead to people-pleasing or conflict avoidance patterns in adult relationships. Within us is an inner child carrying past wounds and fears. This inner child often interprets current situations through the lens of the past, leading to responses inappropriate for present circumstances. For example, someone with many childhood experiences of rejection might live with fear of rejection as an adult, repeating patterns of failing to set healthy boundaries or express their needs. Interestingly, these patterns function for us in some way, even if unhealthy. Otherwise, we would have abandoned them already. For example, perfectionism might be a way to manage fear of failure, and excessive workaholism might be a way to fill inner emptiness. Cynically speaking, we all have our convenient neurosis that provides some form of psychological stability in the short term, even if it makes us unhappy in the long run. It's like stubbornly keeping uncomfortable but familiar old slippers. Even knowing new slippers would be better. Chapter 3. identity conflicts, and the threat of change. Another significant factor making change difficult is the issue of identity. We all have an internal narrative about what kind of person we are. This self-image shapes our behaviors, choices, and even dreams and goals. The problem is that patterns we repeat, even negative ones, become part of our identity. I'm always late. I'm not good at controlling my emotions. I'm bad with money. These self-perceptions aren't simple observations but internal commands directing our behavior. Therefore, attempting change means not just changing behavior, but reconstructing fundamental self-understanding. This can cause deep identity confusion, generating strong anxiety and resistance. For example, if someone who has defined themselves as a diligent employee suddenly decides to become a free entrepreneur, they face challenges beyond learning new skills. They must redefine their very way of being. It's like completely rewriting a script that has defined you for a long time. Additionally, our behavioral patterns are often deeply connected to the social systems surrounding us. Family, friends, and colleagues are accustomed to our current ways of behaving and may resist, consciously or unconsciously, when we try to change. The question, "Why are you acting differently lately?" often carries the hidden message, "If you change, our relationship might have to change too, and that makes me anxious." From a cynical perspective, we are all faithful guards of the prison of our own identity. We crave freedom, yet fear leaving the safety of that prison. And sometimes we even build those prison walls higher ourselves. The statement, "That's just who I am," often means, I don't want to face the fear and uncertainty of change. Chapter 4. The Neuroscience of Change and Brain Plasticity. Despite the challenges discussed, change is absolutely possible. This hope stems from advances in neuroscience, particularly understanding brain plasticity. Brain plasticity refers to the brain's ability to physically restructure itself in response to new experiences and learning. In the past, the adult brain was thought to be fixed with very limited capacity for change. However, modern neuroscience has shown that adult brains are remarkably adaptable and can form new neural pathways. This is a very encouraging discovery. It means that even patterns repeated for a long time can be changed through conscious effort and consistent practice, actually altering the brain's structure. For example, people who regularly practice meditation experience actual changes in brain regions that regulate stress responses. People receiving trauma therapy show changes in activity in brain regions managing fear responses. These aren't just psychological changes, but actual changes in the physical structure and function of the brain. One of the most important insights from the neuroscience of change is Hebb's law. Neurons that fire together wire together. This means that every time we repeat a thought or behavior, the associated neural pathways strengthen. Therefore, change isn't simply about suppressing bad habits, but consciously building new neural pathways. This requires time and consistent effort, but it's definitely possible. From a cynical perspective, our brain is in some ways very simple. It judges what's frequently repeated as important and allocates resources there. So we can exploit this simplicity. To make your brain believe you've actually changed, act as if you've changed for long enough. The brain will eventually accept the act as reality. This is the neurological basis for the saying, when behavior changes, emotions follow. Chapter 5. The Role of Self-Awareness and Metacognition. One of the most important steps in the journey toward change is developing self-awareness. We cannot change patterns we don't recognize. In psychology, this is called metacognition. Metacognition means the ability to think about your thought processes, literally thinking about thinking. This includes the ability to objectively observe your behaviors, emotions, and thought patterns. By developing metacognition, we can create space between automatic responses and habitual behaviors. This space provides room to choose consciously rather than reacting reflexively. For example, instead of becoming immediately defensive or angry when criticized, metacognition allows us to pause and observe, now I'm feeling threatened by criticism. My body is tensing, and I feel an impulse to react defensively. This awareness gives us the opportunity to choose a more conscious response. The practice of self-observation is a powerful tool for interrupting the mind's habitual patterns and introducing new response methods. Meditation, mindfulness, and self-reflection practices all help strengthen this metacognitive ability. Interestingly, neuroscience research has shown that regular meditation actually strengthens the prefrontal cortex, the brain region responsible for self-awareness and executive function. This means we can directly create the neurological foundation for change through these practices. Cynically speaking, metacognition is like developing an inner adult who observes our crazy mind. We all sometimes react irrationally, impulsively, and emotionally. Metacognition provides the ability to smile and say, "Ah, here we go again," even in the midst of this madness. The first step of change often begins with this ability to view our patterns with humor. Chapter 6. Practical Methods for Change. Now that we've examined various factors hindering change, let's explore concrete strategies for creating real change. 1. Adopt a gradual approach. The brain perceives sudden change as a threat. Therefore, starting with small changes and gradually expanding is effective. For example, instead of resolving to exercise an hour daily, starting with just 5 minutes and gradually increasing improves chances of success. 2. Design your environment. Willpower is a finite resource. Therefore, it's important to design your environment favorably for change. For example, if you want healthier eating habits, not bringing unhealthy food home at all is more effective than relying excessively on willpower. 3. Retrain neural pathways. Forming new habits requires conscious repetition. According to neuroscience, consistent practice is essential for strengthening new neural pathways. This is the foundation for concepts like 21-day habit formation. Of course, the actual formation period may vary depending on the person and habit. 4. Find deep sources of motivation. Sustainable change requires motivation connected to deep values, not superficial motives. Dieting to be healthy and live an energetic life is more effective long-term than dieting to look good. 5. Change self-talk. Self-talk powerfully influences our beliefs and behaviors. Changing thoughts from "I always fail" to "I'm learning and growing" can make a big difference. 6. Build social support systems. Change is difficult alone. Communities of people with the same goals, or relationships with people who support your change, greatly help maintain motivation and accountability. 7. Reinterpret failure as learning opportunities. Failure is inevitable in the process of change. What's important is seeing failure not as evidence of inability, but as opportunities for learning. This is the core of a growth mindset. From a cynical perspective, most of us repeat the same ways of failing at change. We set overly ambitious goals, rely too much on willpower, and give up after the first failure. Then we repeat the same cycle next year. If we can recognize this pattern and laugh at it, we've already begun the first step of change. Chapter 7. Emotional Resolution and Healing Trauma. As mentioned earlier, many repetitive patterns are rooted in unresolved emotional wounds or trauma. Therefore, True change often requires facing and resolving these emotional elements. Emotional healing generally includes these steps. 1. Recognition and acknowledgement. The first step in healing emotional wounds is recognizing and acknowledging their existence. Many people tend to deny or minimize painful past experiences, but healing begins with acknowledging those experiences and their impact on us. 2. Expressing emotions. Suppressed emotions often manifest as various forms of self-destructive behavior. It's important to safely express these emotions through journaling, conversations with trusted people, and sometimes with professional help. 3. Practicing self-compassion. Many people are overly critical of their wounds and failures. Self-compassion means taking a kind and understanding attitude toward your own pain. Research shows self-compassion is a strong predictor of resilience and psychological well-being. 4. Finding meaning. Trauma research shows finding meaning in painful experiences is an important element of healing. This doesn't mean reinterpreting the experience as a good thing, but recognizing what you've learned and how you've grown through the experience. 5. Seeking professional help. For deep trauma or serious mental health issues, professional help is essential. Psychotherapy can help process past wounds in a safe environment. From a cynical perspective, many people obsess over self-improvement while ignoring their emotional wounds. It's like trying to complete a marathon with a broken leg. In some ways, the self-help industry tends to suggest methods for bypassing or covering emotional deficits with positive thinking rather than acknowledging and confronting them. However, true change often begins when we face the uncomfortable truths we most want to avoid. Chapter 8. Spiritual Dimensions and Exploring Meaning. An important aspect often overlooked in discussions of human change is the spiritual dimension. Here, spiritual doesn't necessarily have religious meaning. Rather, it means exploring deeper meaning and purpose in our existence. One reason change is difficult is that the purpose of change is often unclear. If we can't assign deep meaning to the question, why should I change? Zrania motivation for change easily weakens. Many psychologists and philosophers argue that the pursuit of meaning is one of humanity's most basic motivations. Viktor Frankl recorded in Man's Search for Meaning that people who could find meaning even in suffering showed the highest survival rates in concentration camps. Meaning provides deep fulfillment beyond simple happiness or pleasure. The feeling of contributing to something greater than oneself, the recognition that one's actions matter in a larger context, can be powerful drivers of change. Spiritual traditions have long provided wisdom about inner change and growth. For example, many spiritual traditions emphasize developing observer consciousness or witness consciousness. This concept, similar to metacognition mentioned earlier, means the ability to step back and observe one's thoughts and feelings. Additionally, spiritual traditions often emphasize the importance of community. In the journey of change, support from communities sharing the same values and goals is very important. This provides deep connection beyond simple social support, supporting individual change through shared meaning and purpose. From a cynical perspective, modern society constantly pressures us to pursue external achievements and material success. But the satisfaction these pursuits bring is often temporary and superficial. We strive to change to get bigger houses, better cars, higher status. But these external rewards aren't sufficient motivation for true inner change and growth. Eventually, we return to the same patterns. Chapter 9. Human Change from a Biblical Perspective. The Bible provides rich insights into human change and growth. From a biblical perspective, true change begins not with simple behavior modification, but with change of heart. inner change. Romans 12:2 expresses this: "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, His good, pleasing, and perfect will." This verse emphasizes that true change begins with a renewing of the mind. This connects with the concept of neuroplasticity discussed earlier. When our thought patterns change, our behaviors follow. The Bible also acknowledges that change is often difficult and painful. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." This passage suggests trials and challenges can actually become essential parts of growth and maturity. This aligns with the concept modern psychology calls post-traumatic growth. The Bible also emphasizes the importance of community. Hebrews 10:24-25 says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together, as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching." This shows how important support and encouragement from others are in the journey of change. We weren't designed to change alone. Finally, the Bible points to God's grace as the ultimate source of change. 2 Corinthians 5:17 declares, "Therefore, if anyone is in Christ, the new creation has come. The old has gone. The new is here." From this perspective, true inner change is impossible through our efforts alone, becoming possible through connection with a power that transcends us. This aligns with the concept that self-transcendence is a key element for meaningful life and deep change, as observed by many modern psychologists. From a cynical perspective, modern society often packages self-improvement as a self-centered process. Behind the cry, "Create a better version of yourself," often hides obsession with the self. However, the biblical perspective paradoxically suggests the deepest change occurs when we put down the self and commit to a greater purpose. This recalls psychologist Viktor Frankl's words, "The more one forgets himself by giving himself to a cause to serve or another person to love, the more human he is and the more he actualizes himself." Chapter 10. Conclusion. Change is a journey. We've explored various aspects of why humans repeat mistakes yet struggle to change. We've examined the brain's conservative tendencies, the entanglement of emotions and wounds, identity conflicts, the hope of neuroplasticity, the role of metacognition, practical change strategies, the importance of emotional resolution, the spiritual dimension of meaning, and the biblical perspective. Through this exploration, we've learned that change isn't simply a matter of information or knowledge. We generally already know what's right, what's healthy, what's effective. The real challenge is integrating this knowledge into actual life. Change is a holistic process involving restructuring of the brain, emotional patterns, identity reconstruction, and often spiritual dimension changes. It's not a moment's decision, but a journey unfolding over time. Most importantly, change doesn't demand perfection. Failures and setbacks are normal parts of the change process. What matters is continuing on the path, rising again after failure, and staying connected to the deeper purpose and meaning of change. Proverbs 24:16 beautifully expresses this. "For though the righteous fall 7 times, they rise again, but the wicked stumble when calamity strikes." This verse suggests a righteous person isn't one who never falls, but one who rises again after falling. What we need in the journey of change isn't perfection, but persistence. And this persistence comes not from self-punishment or strict self-control, but from self-compassion and deep purpose. Ultimately, our capacity for change is a core part of our humanity. We aren't simply beings bound by past programming or current habits. We have the unique ability to consciously choose, grow, and change. Recognizing and accepting this ability is the true beginning of change. Cynically speaking, we all tend to endlessly talk about change while trapped in our habits and patterns. It's like reading a diet book while eating cake. However, true wisdom lies in recognizing this irony and nevertheless continuing toward change. Because the journey of change itself, as much as its results, leads us to a more fulfilling and meaningful life. Philippians 1:6 says, "Being confident of this, that he who began a good work in you will carry it on to completion until the day of Christ Jesus." This provides hope and confidence that change happens not simply through our own efforts, but with help from a greater power, working in and through us. Change is difficult but possible. It's a core part of our humanity, and a channel through which we can grow toward a more fulfilling and meaningful life. In this journey that holistically engages our brain, emotions, identity, and spiritual dimension, we can become beings who truly flourish and grow beyond simply reducing mistakes. Closing remarks. I'm truly glad to have explored the complex and fascinating topic of human change with you today. As we've seen, recurring mistakes and the difficulty of change aren't simple matters of willpower, but complex phenomena involving brain biology, emotional dynamics, deep structures of identity, and even spiritual dimensions. As we've learned through this journey, change is difficult, but definitely possible. It's an essential ability and one of the elements that makes us truly human. As the Bible reminds us, we aren't simply beings bound by past patterns or current habits. We have the amazing ability to be renewed. Thank you sincerely for listening to this audiobook to the end. I hope this content provides meaningful insights and practical tools for change in your life. If you found this helpful, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and share this message with more people. May wisdom and courage accompany you on your journey. Thank you.